at it one-dimensionally. I said he's a three-dimensional chess player. I think he's going to do a deal with Russia on Ukraine
Right.
that's going to hurt Iran. I think he'll say, okay, you could replace Iran as an oil exporter because I'm going to slam them with tariffs and threaten everybody who deals with Iran. And I'll release the sanctions with you and sanction Iran. And he'll use that. And what he gets out of that, he threatens Hezbollah financing, he threatens Hamas financing, he threatens the Houthis. He uses it as a big geopolitical win as well. And that's what I mean by three dimensions. The guy, we just narrowed it down to one dimension here, but he's thinking globally, three
Right.
dimensions.
Hey, everybody, welcome back to Markets and Madness. This is the place where we try and discuss what happens when economics, politics, and personalities all move in different directions. Today we have with us again the guest, old friend, Matt Lifson from RASA Consulting. If anybody's interested to hear what Matt has to say afterwards, you could drop a comment below and we'll get you in touch with Matt and we could put that all together. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Matt. Good morning, Tim. How you guys
Tim,
doing?
good morning, Fred.
Well, what we've had with 3 days into the new administration, we've gotten some surprises. We've gotten, some issues that we thought were going to happen. What's your thoughts now and how it's affected the markets? Overall, I see stocks have done well. Bitcoin has done very well. Gold has done very well. Where's the trouble spot?
They should look at trouble spots. I think obviously the stock market is doing well, and a lot of that has to do with the earnings reports. The fourth quarter earnings have come out, and everything so far is doing well. I think there is still the background of the tariffs, and we're going to talk about tariffs until we stop talking about them. It seems to me now it's become a little bit more of a negotiating point, not so much it's an actual thing that's going to happen. I think the one thing that I've noticed over the last couple of days, I remember the last time when we spoke, when I had the privilege of being on with you guys, was the dollar and was the euro going to parity and things like that. And in the run-up before the election, we got down to 102.35, and as I joke about it, everybody started throwing the P word around, and now we're back up around 104. And I don't think, quite honestly, that has much to do with the incoming administration. I think that has more to do with people taking profit. I think the market was overly long dollars. I think what you're seeing is some profit taking now. Doesn't mean it's not going to go to parity, but I thought it was interesting yesterday. I'm sure you both saw Jamie Dimon's comments about the equity markets. Like he thinks they're overvalued, and I don't disagree with him. I think they may be a little overvalued. I think we're going to have a little bit of a pullback. For now, I don't see the incoming administration right now affecting the stock market that much. I mean, it is part of it, but I think that's more maybe into the Bitcoin and maybe into treasury yields.
What do you think, Tim? What are your thoughts?
I'm going to make a talk in about 2 hours. I have a group meeting, and they asked me to comment. So maybe I'll bounce my thoughts off you guys. I've been thinking about this for a few days now, really since the election, and looks to me like the world's turned around in a big way in the election. With respect to your comments, Matt, I would say that the dollar tracked 10-year yields in a big way. And we got back up to 470 at one point. Now we're back down to 460. And I think the dollar reacted almost tick for tick.
Didn't we almost touch 5%?
Sorry?
I don't remember getting that high.
I don't think the 10-year got there now.
Yeah,
Okay.
no.
4.75, I think,
Yeah.
probably. But at any rate, I started to think about Trump in a way. And I have to say that if you had to describe Trump, you'd say he's a guy that's capable of playing three-dimensional chess, but he's also a salesman. I feel like we're living inside one of his hotels, and he's out there trying to generate revenue and get people to show up. His goal, clearly, I think, is to shrink the public sector and grow the private sector. I think the way he sees this economy, it's public sector heavy. In other words, all the government jobs have been driving all the employment gains that we've seen, certainly for the last several years. So I think he wants to reverse that. And his biggest tool is the U.S. consumer. If all of us went to an island, which, by the way, I might be up for, we would probably figure out what we could build to sell to the U.S. because the U.S. consumer is the engine of growth throughout the world. It's two-thirds of our GDP, which is the biggest GDP in the world. I guess if you believe China's numbers, it's even close. So the U.S. consumer and access to U.S. consumer is his big tool in the toolbox. Now, the U.S. consumer is not without its problems. It's stretched. Consumer debt is at all-time high levels, and inflation has hurt the U.S. consumer quite a bit. So he's got to address that. And I think his solutions to that is to lower energy prices with drill, baby, drill, and to lower the tax burden on the U.S. consumer, creating more disposable income. So he's taking a salesman's approach. Where's this growth going to come from? And the answer, which as foreign exchange guys, we see the answer as importing foreign capital. I saw him the other day with those three guys. Ellison was one of them, the Japanese guy, and somebody else. And collectively, they amounted to $500 billion
Right.
in investment. So he's going to go and import foreign capital. And he's using tariffs to do that. I want to get to tariffs in a minute. But his problem by importing capital is it's going to drive the dollar up when he prefer to see a lower dollar. So I think he's going to accept a higher dollar. I don't think.
But don't you see some of those dollars are already here? I know you talk about foreign capital, but some of those dollars are already
Let me
here.
ask you this, then. I'm going to get to the tariffs. So let's get to the tariffs then. He's using tariffs to encourage companies outside the country, both foreign and domestic, to avoid the tariffs by coming here. He's saying to the U.S. companies, okay, move your stuff back onshore, and when you sell into us, you're not going to face this tariff. And equally, he's saying to foreign countries, you're going to get an advantage to your local counterparts, your local competitors, by coming here. And if it's a 10% tariff that they're going to receive, you're getting a 10% discount on your sales.
But don't you see the tariffs also as more of a bargaining tool to create trade agreements with
It's a lever.
both the Eurozone, Great Britain, China?
Yeah, I think there's four reasons he's got the tariffs. One is to do what I just said. Two is a geopolitical lever. Three, to neutralize the BRICS. When a Spanish reporter asked him the other day, what about Spain? He said, isn't Spain a member of BRICS? And the reporter didn't know what he was talking about. He sees BRICS as the threat. So he'll use tariffs to neutralize BRICS. He'll say, oh, you want to join BRICS? You got a 25% tariff. Eat it. And I think he's put BRICS on hold. And the fourth thing he's going to do with tariffs is to generate external revenue to offset whatever he does here. Because Freddie's point has always been, you're going to have big unemployment in the public sector when he cuts this budget and cuts these jobs, and Doge cuts the jobs. So I think he's going to replace that with private sector, but also he's going to use revenue from the tariffs to offset that.
Yeah, the idea of setting up an external revenue service was interesting.
Brilliant. It's brilliant.
Well, I again, and this happened in his first administration. Once again, we're facing not a politician. We're facing, like as you said, Timmy, a businessman, and he's looking at the running of the government as a business. I remember, years ago, being involved in a temple in New Jersey, and they were just running it as a religious organization. And somebody said, "No, you got to run it as a business. You got to pay rent. You got to pay bills." And nobody would believe this guy, and the temple ended up falling into financial difficulties. So I think some of the things he's doing, like I said, I think Canada and Mexico with 25% tariffs unless they straighten up the border. Okay, it's a threat. It's maybe a bargaining tool, but I don't think it's the worst thing in the world to do as long as it brings forth some sort of motivation by Canada and Mexico to improve the border.
And what Tim's been talking about, the last couple of podcasts we've done is the threat to Russia, tariffs to Russia if they don't find a way. And, one thing he said earlier this week, and I forget when it was, it might have been the inauguration day, he talked about what somebody can gain on a deal. Like, it's not always going to be I win, you lose. It's going to be, I'll give you a little of this, you give me a little of that. So I
And he
think,
uses a carrot and a stick too.
yeah, yeah. So, threatening the Russians with tariffs and then enticing them with letting them back in and
See,
sell oil.
let me make this point. We're looking at it one dimensionally. I said he's a three-dimensional chess player.
Yeah,
I think he's going to do a deal with Russia on Ukraine
right.
that's going to hurt Iran. I think he'll say, okay, you could replace Iran as an oil exporter because I'm going to slam them with tariffs and threaten everybody who deals with Iran. And I'll release the sanctions with you and sanction Iran. And he'll use that. And when he gets out of that, he threatens Hezbollah financing. He threatens Hamas financing. He threatens the Houthis. He uses it as a big geopolitical win as well. And that's what I mean by three dimensions. The guy, we just narrowed it down to one dimension here, but he's thinking globally.
Right. And I don't think that's a bad idea. I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. The only thing I hope to see from this administration is, I hate to use the word, but the restoration of America. I don't want to go into the make America great again. America's always been great. It's not make America great again. It's restore American pride, and I think that's the important the important thing to do. And if he can make, like you say, three-dimensional deals to get, you give me this, I'll give you this, and it'll cause that, but it benefits us. Okay.
Yeah, and he's certainly on that track. I mean, we can see some of
Let
that.
me introduce another piece, and I'm confused about it. I don't know where he is on crypto. People tell me he's embracing crypto. I think he wants to regulate it. Let me just flash you back, okay? Put your laser suit on. We're back in the 80s. We had a lot of trouble defining what money was. Remember?
Right.
M1A, M1B, money market accounts, is that money? I would argue that Amazon gift certificates are money today.
Sure.
I mean, if Amazon wanted to raise $100 million, they don't have to go into the corporate bond market. They could just say, I'm going to give you 5% on my gift cards. And all of a sudden, consumers will buy gift cards, and they've raised the money. We've got different avenues now that really could be construed as money, and crypto is certainly one of them. Now, before we were born, FDR saw gold as money as a threat to the dollar, and he effectively confiscated gold by saying U.S. citizens couldn't own gold. So I think he's trying to get his arms around crypto with this crypto repository and having a set of regulations for crypto, but I don't know that it can be regulated. And I'm really confused about where he goes with that.
I agree with you. I think he is trying to regulate it. I also agree with you that I don't know if you. I mean, the whole draw of crypto from the very beginning was that it was unregulated. So I mean, to try to bring out some kind of regulation would, in my mind, have to involve the major central banks.
Well, see now, the other piece of this is he's fighting cartels, and crypto is the major method of financing for cartels and blackmail. So if I were him, I would lobby the legislators really, to say, let's consider legislation that says that we will not enforce contracts that are satisfied with any form of crypto. So he's taken, I mean, one of the big advantages of the US is the legal system, is you can enforce a contract. Well, if crypto was restricted from that avenue of enforcement, he would neutralize crypto in the United States.
But I would lose his base. He's got a huge base of crypto supporters.
Yeah.
And he's got a lot of people that have brought money in. I think the Japanese guy that was going to put $500 billion, isn't he crypto based? I think there's a big part of him that's electronic.
I love
digital
that guy, by the
currencies.
way.
Well, this is going to be interesting.
100, I say 100, he say, how about 200? I come back with 500.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, this is one of the fine lines that he's going to have to walk. I mean, I read something the other day, just to slightly get off topic, and I don't mean to, but, somebody criticizing him that he didn't end the war in Ukraine the first day he's back. He should resign because he's lying already. I mean, he ran on one crypto policy, Now he's maybe finding that that's not going to work and he's going to have to switch off. I think that's going to be his biggest problem regarding crypto. I mean, there's a lot of other problems that he has going forward. There's no doubt that all of his policies are inflationary. I think we'd agree with that. Most of us, at
I
least.
don't know about that. I would say a stronger dollar, which is going to be, I'm in that camp. I think the importing capital is going to lead to a stronger dollar.
But the point I wanted to bring is he clashed in his first administration with his own Fed chairman, right? Who's still there now. They argued back then about quickly lowering rates to zero, if you remember, and that didn't work. Now we're a week away from the first Fed meeting, and probably remain at the rates, keeping the rates steady. At what point does he start jumping on Jerome Powell to start lowering rates? Because it's going to happen, and Powell won't lower rates as long as inflation remains high. So I see that as something that's
I
going
think
to.
he's going to pick his battles.
But
I
that's a
think
battle he picked 4 years ago. Why won't he pick it now?
because he saw mistakes he made 4 years ago. He's got a big stick,
And
he
we've
can
had a
use
big
it.
spike in inflation that he's just seen.
Yeah. So I think he's going to have some backroom conversations with Powell, and he's going to leak out what he can win. He doesn't want to lose,
No, no,
and
and
he's going to fight the battles that he can win.
I think he found out last administration that Powell won't back down. So
Yeah.
he'll do what he thinks is right.
So he's going to make some concessions. We'll do this in order to get inflation down. If we do this, can we expect you to do this?
I think we're missing the supply side of it. He's chosen to fight inflation by lowering energy prices and stimulating production. If he can lower energy prices and get oil down to $45 or $50 a barrel, which is where we'd like to see, you're going to see inflation shrink. That's a big driver of inflation. Add to that a stimulus and output growing, and you're back to Friedman, money supply versus output. And I think he's tackling that both ways. He's a supply sider. He's an Art Laffer guy.
So throwing out the fuel prices, with fuel prices around 285, 290 a gallon, where do you see them 6 months from now? Yeah, that's my call. I mean, he's going to definitely, if you said it earlier, drill baby drill. He's he's going that way. He's going that route.
Natural gas too. And natural gas is going to, I think, supersede oil because it's cleaner, and it can get, as a tool to drag whatever environmentalist he can into the picture. And we can export natural gas. All of Europe needs it. So I see natural gas as a bigger benchmark than oil. The problem with oil is refineries.
He speaks this afternoon in Davos at 5 o'clock Switzerland time. He'll be speaking via video link. He's obviously going to be at the White House. So
I heard he was going to North Carolina and California today.
Well, at some point he's speaking to Davos. It's scheduled for 5 o'clock Swiss time, so that would probably be maybe it'd be like within an hour of now.
Yeah.
Yesterday Christine Lagarde said we have to wait to see what he says. Basically, we have to position the eurozone to deal with tariffs, whatever they may be. I'm sure he's going to be strong, but not overbearing in this. This is his first quote unquote appearance amongst the rest of the world. And I think he'll be strong, but he won't be overbearing.
Well, I saw Milei from Argentina spoke, and I didn't see his piece, but I saw the headline. And the headline was he basically addressed the World Economic Forum saying, this is no longer your game. You're no longer in charge.
I think we're back to three-dimensional chess here.
Exactly.
What he's going to say to Europe, I think, is, and maybe he won't say it publicly, but privately, he's going to say, boost your defense spending up to 5% into NATO, and I'll consider reducing the tariffs.
But that's a definite. He did say something. I just saw it for a minute. Yeah, he was talking about somewhere from 5 to 7% spending.
He'd like to see NATO increase, and he's got the argument. Russia has showed NATO that they really need to increase their defense budgets.
Yeah.
So he'll use the tariffs as a wedge for that. I mean, it's an interesting guy. He's really. It's like watching Dick Lane.
Can you imagine him coming to a Forex meeting to talk to us 30 minutes ago? But no, I look. It's an interesting it's an interesting couple of days and everything. It's first everything's first. Getting back to we're sort of getting back to normal. All the rhetoric of the election campaign and everything else like that. Now we're just back to being normal, if you call snow in South Carolina normal. But I mean, and we just have to take it. I mean, we joke about it occasionally, but come on, we're only 3 days into the first 100 days. Let's see what.
There are huge variables here and big volatility swings because there's massive decisions being made that have huge impact for the market. So I think vol is low. And, is it an argument to buy VIX? I don't know, but I think you can get both sides and options and make money.
I mean, you were talking earlier about the difference in the currency markets and stuff. The Fed and the Bank of England meet this week. The Bank of Japan is meeting today and tomorrow. They'll announce tomorrow. By the time we wake up, they'll announce they're probably going to raise rates. Then the ECB meets the week after that. So, interest. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind that we hold our rates firm next week. I think the Bank of England may reduce a little bit, but I'm not sure. I haven't made sure of that. And ECB is going to lower rates. So once again, we're going to be at the top of the rate world, if you will, amongst.
That's going to import more capital, stronger for dollar. And I would argue that the central bank's actions, unless they're really drastic, are not in focus anymore. There's bigger issues out there.
Yeah, I think it's the administration more so than the central bank.
Well, it depends on which currencies you're talking about.
I think one thing that's interesting, we talked about it a lot just after the election, was the teaming up of Elon and Vivek in Doge. And now Vivek has sort of stepped away. And a lot of people are saying it's because he's going to run for governor of Ohio.
Right. Well,
that leaves Elon in charge.
Yeah.
Where does that go?
Mars. Goes to Mars.
He did
We're
mention
going to
that in
Mars.
his
And when
inauguration.
he cuts the budget, the one piece of the budget he's not going to cut is the military budget.
Right.
And specifically space. So if you want to buy a sector, I think that's an interesting sector to buy, the aerospace sector.
now did Vivek officially back away, or is it just talk? Because I know, I've read it. He's officially backed out of
What
Doge.
he did, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then he's running. For the governor.
Yeah, but Elon runs 4 different companies and taking this on. I'm surprised that Vivek stepped away.
Well,
And I
speaking of
know
Elon,
running for governor is a different challenge, and I don't know when that election is.
well, two things. First of all, speaking of Vivek stepping away, I've always maintained that when it comes to politics and when it comes to running for major, political office such as the president, a governor, in my opinion, always has the better experience than a senator does, because a governor has ran a state. Now he's going to be asked to step up and run the country. It's a great big step, but as a governor governs, a senator legislates.
What's
So I think
DeSantis going to do?
I think his going to run for governor is a longer term plan in his mind, as we all know, because he tried before. What does DeSantis do? I think DeSantis is sort of sidelined right now because
He's going to term limited. He's going to get out.
no. I mean, he's out of that. What I see him doing, I don't see, like Ron DeSantis. I think he's a decent guy. I don't see him as the major player in 2028. As long as the Trump administration does positive things, J.D. Vance will be your Republican
I think
presidential
DeSantis will have a
candidate.
cabinet position. When he gets pushed out, he'll have a cabinet position somewhere. I was surprised to see Rubio get elected, put into power so quickly, approved so quickly, and they're still stalling some of these other appointments.
Yeah, well, I would think by the end of this week, or maybe early next week, everything should be in place. I like Rubio's. I like that pick. I really do.
I think Christy Nome is hotter.
Okay.
But that's just me.
Agriculture.
No, but getting back to DeSantis, DeSantis didn't do anything wrong. I mean, DeSantis falls into that whole group of DeSantis, Tim Scott, and Nikki Haley. Those who could have but didn't.
Well, I think Tim Scott and Nikki Haley are very different. Nikki Haley was totally against Trump while he was down, where Tim Scott was quiet, DeSantis was quiet, and then DeSantis stepped up to run and felt the wrath of Trump.
No, but my point
And
is,
then they all came back on board, but Nikki Haley came back kicking and screaming.
yeah, but my
So
point
I
is
think
not that. My point is they've lost their traction in terms of of the future of the Republican Party. That's what I'm talking about. I
Okay.
think the future is Vivek, is J.D. Vance, those people. I think, for lack of a better word, Tim Scott's missed the train, and unfortunately,
I think it's another one that has the opportunity to move into a cabinet position when
yeah,
the opportunity avails.
yeah, yeah, yeah. What about? I'll throw this one out to you. What about what's going on in California? How is that going to affect the upcoming? Newsom is also term limited. Is California going to turn Republican because of the way these brush fires were handled? I mean, it's something to think about.
Yeah, it's a very good point. I mean, they talk about dropping the ball at every level.
Again, I said this to some people towards the end of the President Biden's administration. Everybody was talking about what he did, all the bad things, quote unquote. And I kept on saying, stop turning around, look forward. Even this past weekend, somebody's telling me that, look, it's 3 days to the new day. Stop
Well,
it.
you talk about California. I saw something last night that I thought was interesting, and I don't know if it's making a big headline. Mel Gibson was appointed
Oh yeah,
or
Mel
as
Gibson,
the ambassador to Hollywood.
Not just him.
Sylvester Stallone and John Voight. The three of them and the president said he wants them referred to as Mr. Ambassador.
I thought the three amigos, but that's just me.
So you do have, I think you get some of that on board. People are coming out now. People that couldn't come out before, that had some conservative viewpoints that were hidden. So maybe that does sway California. I don't think it's
Well,
going to turn on a dime because there's still some people that are very dyed in the wool. But I think
Well,
it's
But Orange County
slowly
was
coming.
always kind of red.
yeah, but
You know,
think of
Reagan
it.
came out of Orange County.
Think of it this way, though. I mean, anybody who runs for governor on the Democratic side in California in a couple of years is going to have to bear the burden of what happened with the fires, even though they may have had quote unquote nothing to do with it. Your party screwed up. Period. End of story. Your party screwed up. Our party wouldn't have let that happen. Now you're a Californian. Which way do you fall? Because of all the unfortunate destruction and people losing their houses. And I'm not talking about the stars. I'm talking about everyday people like you and I. I think it's going to make a major impact in not only the governorship, but in the House representative, the House votes in California, maybe even the Senate votes.
Could I wish Schiff ran after the fires
Yeah,
rather than
yeah,
before. It
yeah.
would have been a
And
different.
I mean, the talk of Kamala Harris running for governor in California, I think the Republican Party is probably pursuing that, hoping that she does.
Listen, I'm on a tight schedule, but I did want to introduce another topic here, and I want to swing it back to the markets. Those fires in California, I think that's going to impact lumber prices and housing. What do you guys think?
Well, it's certainly going to impact the lumber prices, and that's going to be another thing to do with that. Now just gives Canada another bit of bargaining power over the 25% tariffs, because where is most of our our lumber imported from to build houses is Canada.
North Carolina?
Well, but I think that there's certainly going to be, I mean, if you still have the opportunity to get involved in lumber futures, if things of that nature, it's not a bad thing. But yeah, that's going to be a one industry that you're going to see take off. I agree.
Well, housing.
Yeah.
But how many? I mean, we're talking about one state out of 50. And granted, we've had problems in North Carolina with the floods and the hurricanes that they have there. But do you really think it's going to impact lumber prices that much? And I know we're talking about tens of thousands of homes.
Yeah, because we're talking about tens of thousands of homes.
But you drive from the East Coast down 95, they're building everywhere. It's not just what's going on in California. Everywhere I turn, you drive here in Horry County, South Carolina, they're clearing.
So you don't see an impact.
No, I do.
don't see
I
an
do.
impact of that.
I
I
do.
think it's limited.
And I will agree
Housing
with you.
prices, I think, once again, are limited. We're seeing a lot of these townhouses complex being built. Where they used to build 10 homes, now they're building 5 townhouse complexes with 12 units in each.
Now, let me introduce this to you. How do you insure them? We got the insurance industry who's taken a huge hickey in California, and it's already moved out of California, which rescued the insurance industry but hurt the homeowners. So the government's going to have to step in because what California did was impose price controls so that insurance companies could not charge the premiums necessary to insure those houses. So now the government, through price controls, created this monstrous insurance shortage, and it blew up once the fires took over. So now that, I mean, it's a lesson in basic economics here, that you get shortages when you impose price controls. But having said that, that's where we live now. That's what's happening. And this massive increase in housing prices that we've seen over the last 10 years is now reflected in the value of the properties that the insurance company have to insure. I live in a condo, and our insurance premiums went up. They doubled again, and now we're going to face another assessment. So all these condo associations are facing assessment, which puts the pressure on a consumer that's already stretched. So I think we got a real crisis brewing here, stemming from insurance and the rise in housing prices.
Well, think about what you're saying. Now, you're living in Florida, and your major concerns are hurricanes. I'm living in Tennessee, where my major concerns are tornadoes. So I think that's where you're seeing what the increasing rate pricings in insurance policies is going on. Is that I think the insurance companies, after seeing what happened in California, are trying to put some sort of, I don't know, basic fund together to deal with what happened in North Carolina if it happens again.
Yeah, but I agree with you. But 5 years ago, the value of the average price property that they were insuring was 150,000, and now it's 500,000.
Right.
You know,
Well, just
so now they've got to replace a $500,000 house instead of a $150,000
Right.
house. So it's not only natural catastrophes; it's the property values that have risen, which makes the insurance premiums go up commensurately.
No, I
And
agree with you,
that's
and
the
I
problem.
see it. I see it here in Sumner
Derivative of
County.
inflation.
We're one of Sumner and Wilson County, right outside of Nashville. We're one of the largest growing, communities in the United States. Nashville is one of the top 5 growing communities in the United States. Like you said about the 5 houses instead of 12 houses instead of 5. You drive on Interstate 65, Interstate 40. You look to the sides, everything's being built. More townhouse communities.
You got to insure all those guitars too.
Yeah. Well, hey, I started taking up guitar, so I have one to insure myself. But no, the insurance industry is gonna change, and it's like everything else. The insurance industry changed after Hurricane Sandy. It's gonna change now after the California fires, and it's sort of like, it's expected. I mean, it's going to be more expensive. You're 100% correct.
It's not only insurance, homeowners insurance. Look what happened to health insurance with the CEO of United Healthcare.
Yeah,
This,
And
I agree.
auto insurance.
What?
As well. Auto insurance now.
Auto insurance.
People are driving
everything.
around $50,000 cars that they can't afford because they're
Right.
leasing them.
Right.
20 years ago, they had to buy them. Now they're leasing them. So for $500 a month, they're driving a $50,000 car that's got to be insured.
Right.
And they're surprised when the insurance rates go up. Well, they're driving a vehicle that cost what a house used to cost.
Well, you can't pop open the trunk, the hood of your car right now and work on your car like you could do back in the 70s and the 80s, because everything's you got to hook it up to a computer to do it.
And I can break a nail. So.
Yeah, you don't want to do that. Neighbors around here who used to working on their cars, you hear the frustration in their comments. Oh, I can't do that anymore. Well, you can't. Patty has a coworker who won't buy a car that was built after 2000. He has all used cars because he wants to be able to work on them.
He needs a horse, I think. Guys, I'm not going to be able to stick around much longer.
Okay, yeah, I got to get into a call myself. So thanks for coming on. Once again, RASA Consulting.
Thank
If you're
you.
new to the channel, please
Thanks, Fred.
subscribe, ring the bell. If you find what we say is interesting, if you want to hear what we have to continue to say, please subscribe. Help us grow this channel. Guys, thanks again for coming on, and we'll do this again soon.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Okay.